Good afternoon, everybody. It's Thursday, May 7th, a beautiful sunny afternoon. I'm here with my weekly update and kind of a look toward the future. We got a note from the Cardinal last weekend that hopefully by the end of this week or early next week, we'll have some guidelines for how we can begin to opening up the church just a little bit. The governor's order to have small groupings of no more than 10 is in place to the end of the month, but he's now classified churches as essential businesses, so we're going to be looking at how to do that. My assumption at the moment is it's simply going to be small funerals, small weddings, and baptisms with a possibility of confessions as long as that we have a number of people in the church that's under 10 and that we have proper safeguards and health guards in the way. So we're looking at ordering more masks and hand sanitizer and those kinds of things I'm sure everyone else is doing in the reopening. But again, as soon as I find that out, which may be later this weekend or early next week, I'll let you know, and then we'll talk about how we can reopen it. But as we look toward the future and then beginning to reopen the church for the rest of the eventually hopefully get back to normal, we do know that obviously the school won't be in session until August at the earliest, and that we may have to continue some of the e-learning. We may not be able to have huge weddings or huge masses with 200 or 300 people, but hopefully we'll be able to get back to at least a smaller assembly where we might have 100, 150, and then we just have more frequent masses on the weekend. But that aside, we have to look toward the future. And so we're looking at things like, do we have to stream video the graduation, the first communions? Or are we going to wait till later on to get people back together? And all the details are obviously in the nitty gritty. Do the children march down the aisle wearing masks and then separate? How do we do that? That's all going to be coming out in the guidelines, and as we get closer to the end of May or early June, we'll have a better idea about all of that. But in a larger picture, the church is really called to renewal. I'll have more next week or the week after about Renew My Church, which is going to continue at least the process, but we're in a process of renewal anyway. As everyone knows, the church attendance has been dropping quite drastically in the last 30 or 40 years. Collections are down. It's harder to get volunteers. People are not joining in the same way. The culture has changed, and perhaps our model of church needs to change as well. How do we reach out to younger people in particular who embrace new technologies, who are not joiners, are more likely to do something online or in a chat room than they are in person, and at the same time maintain the culture of what it means to be a Catholic parish for all of the regular people who have built the church over the years that prefer the in-church services, the more traditional manner, to combine both of those. So in that sense, Renew My Church is already happening as we look to that. And the COVID crisis has certainly accelerated that. I'm talking to you now through something I didn't know how to do 2 months ago. We're doing more videos that way. We're having video conferencing to try to keep in touch with people while we're socially distancing. And some of this really actually appeals to younger people. They can go stream a YouTube video on any topic they choose. They can hear this at their leisure or not hear it. It's up to everyone to do that. Right now, we don't have the mechanism to reach the whole parish, because obviously many people are not computer savvy like me. I'm not, or have the tools to do that, or in some cases even the interest. So there'll still be snail mail and bulletins, but on the other hand, that's all online as well. So this is part of how we renew and reach out, because it's reaching out to people who are not currently here or who've dropped out for whatever reason, and yet at the same time maintain our presence to the regulars who are supporting the church. So that's always a difficulty to balance, particularly with limited resources, staff, volunteers, money to provide for that. But it's what we're looking forward to and how we go ahead doing that. And that's always, I said, a difficult balance to do. And we're looking at how to do that, because even e-learning and even online sharing is not the same as the one-to-one contact that really will help people to hear the witness of how God is working in our lives and those intimate relationships, which we all have. While we're trying to keep them as good as possible with physical distancing, we all know that it's a lot better to give family a hug and a kiss and have a meal together than do a virtual kiss and all eat a meal in our own place around at the same time. It's not quite the same. And that leads us, of course, to this weekend, which will be Mother's Day. And so for all of us, this will be Mother's Day in isolation or physical distancing. You won't be able to go to grandma's house. Throwing a kiss over the phone is not the same as being there. We won't be able to go out and do those celebrations. You won't be able to take out your spouse for dinner or children together for a big celebration. So we have to do that in a different way and yet try to maintain the same intimacy. And that's a challenge because people are lonely. People are cooped up. I don't want to get into my own story, but this will be the first Mother's Day that I haven't had my mom with me. And we've been together for an awfully long time, certainly the 65 years I've been alive. And it's been always one of her favorite holidays and a time for family. It was always one of the most special days. So it will be difficult without her. And it will be difficult for many people who are also alone, who might have lost a spouse or something in the last year. That's always the difficulty of the holidays. And so we want to recognize that people do feel losses, and how do we reach out in new ways to them? And how do we take advantage of the fact that given other people are so much worse off than we are in many ways, how do we nurture those relationships we currently have, to hold those people tighter, to hold on to them and truly see the face of God in them, and ask ourselves, are we treating the ones we love the way we really would like to be treated, to show them that they're special, that they're the image of God? Or has it just become of the stress of the day or the busyness of running a household, particularly with children and busyness, that we forget to nurture those important relationships? And so I invite all of you this Mother's Day, since the weather is probably not going to cooperate, it's supposed to be cold and rainy, to how you can just spend that time together with your family to nurture that and loving relationship. And that's really what the gospel is also about this weekend. And I'll say more about that Sunday in the homily. But one of the things that Jesus does say in the Sunday's gospel that he says more than anything else is, do not be afraid. I'm with you, and I'm creating a place for you. And he comes to dwell in our hearts, and that's love. The love of God that lives in our hearts. It's the love of God we share with one another. It's the love of God made flesh, not simply in Christ, Jesus, 2,000 years ago, but in each and every one of us. And we share it in the love we share and the way we treat one another. So have a blessed Mother's Day, a great week, and I will be tuning in on Sunday for the weekly homily, the Sunday homily, and update you next week as I get more information. So God bless you all. Be safe, be healthy, and simply take care of one another.